Thank you, Zimbabwe, for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Now, this is a platform which was specifically created for our farming community here in Zimbabwe, including the various stakeholders that partake along our agricultural value chain. Now, in this particular episode, we are going to be looking at the soybean value chain, what it entails, and what it's supposed to look like in order for us to attain the upper middle class economy by year 2030. We are talking of alleviation of poverty and eradication of hunger, and as such, agriculture becomes a fundamental industry in our economy as Zimbabweans. To discuss the soybean value chain, I have taken the liberty of inviting Mr. Busisa Moyo. He is the Chief Executive Officer of United Refineries Group of Companies. Mr. Busisa Moyo, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Wazanai.
Yes, as I have highlighted earlier on, I would like you to maybe enlighten the audience at home, our farming community and the stakeholders, in terms of an ideal soybean value chain. What should it look like?
So the soybean value chain is part of the oil seeds value chain. It's for our oil seeds that we use in cooking oil, in the manufacture of cooking oil, as well as animal feeds to do with poultry feeds. So that's what it entails. Those are the major areas that it touches. But it goes beyond that. There are new and more sophisticated products that we get from the soya value chain, which are tofu, soya milk for those that are lactose intolerant, and we also get total value protein, which is used in sausages, TVP that goes into sausages and other meat for burgers and so on, as sort of a plant protein or an enhancer for plant protein that's mixed with meat. And nowadays, with this movement for moving away from beef, plant protein or beyond meat, things like that become topical for those that don't want to eat meat but want to get protein.
Okay, thank you so much, Say. I would also want us to talk about the current status of our soybean value chain, maybe also emphasizing on the opportunities that you think might be there. We are talking of attracting investment and even having our stakeholders coming together. What does it look like at the moment? You spoke of the ideal one, what it's supposed to be like, but we also have the existing one. What does it look like?
And the good thing is that we have a soya value chain. We have parts of it that are functional. We have a vibrant soya farming community. We had close to 80,000 tons of soya by our industry statistic for last season. This year we are looking at above 100,000, which is probable given the hectarage that we are seeing and the good rains that we have had. So we have a vibrant soya farming community. At 100,000 tons, we've already begun the journey. Ideally, as a nation, we would need closer to 300,000 tons. So we need to multiply by 3 what we are doing now. So there are opportunities there for farmers to jump in to that value chain to produce soybeans. But we can go backwards on that value chain. There are input providers. The soya is a very hydrophilic crop.
Yes.
It needs a lot of water. So irrigation companies are part of the value chain because we need to irrigate and we need to innovate around irrigation. Not just sprinkler system, not just center pivots. There may be other ways in which we can irrigate soya so that it's relevant for maybe rural farming communities, for example, and smaller farming groups that maybe cannot afford the investment that is required for a center pivot. So we need to innovate and have relevant solutions around the irrigation. That's part of the value chain, going backwards, this side, to the left of the farm.
Yes.
There are input providers, soybean seed, and even there are growers of seed, people that grow seed or grow soya in such a way that it can be used as seed for the next season. Those are a special category of farmers, still farmers, but they are seed breeders or seed growers. So that's part of the opportunities there.
Okay.
We also have fertilizers. We use fertilizers, NPK, your nitrous fertilizers, your phosphates, and your potassium. And that goes into the soya value chain. So again, the innovation. We have seen in different areas the combination of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium is different. So there's innovation again, research, science, and educational institutions of higher learning can take part. You've got your herbicides and other additives, your rhizobium, your inoculants, various things that go into the process, and all that is part of the inputs that the farmer requires. Then we go to the right of the farmer. To the right of the farmer, you have companies like United Refineries and others that are in the soya value chain that process the soyas that come from farmers.
Yes.
We process into cooking oil and stock feeds.
Yes.
But others could process into soya milk. Like I said, for those who are lactose intolerant, others could process total value protein. All these are different products manufacturers or agri-processors, as we are sometimes known. So these are people that could participate. So you've got a whole section there, and with the consumer in mind, to provide protein to animals, provide protein to humans. So there's a processing component. Then after processing, you have, even after the feed, you have feed companies, stock feed companies. We are an integrated group of companies, and we have a stock feeds company that manufactures stock feeds, for example, and some do that. But some process the soya into stock feed and sell to stock feed. Those are part of the value chain. These stock feed manufacturers, they manufacture chicken feed, your starter mash, your growers mash, your finishers mash, your layers mash, things like that. So that's part of the value chain. Egg production is part of the value chain. Pig production, because pigs eat
soya cake.
Soya cake.
Yes.
That's right. Soya oil cake also goes into pig. Fish are also fed these days with modern fish farming. They are fed a protein base, and that protein base primarily comes from soya. So you can see the value chain can really go far. So if you are a fish farmer, you're part of our value chain.
Yes.
If you are a chicken producer, if you're having eggs in the morning, you are taking part or consuming a product that's off the soybean value chain. We call this a miracle value chain because there are so many things. Unlike other oil seeds, they're a little bit narrower.
Very true.
While soya, from an agronomy point of view, requires a lot of effort, irrigation. The benefit is that you can touch multiple. It's one of those crops that with soya, you've got your protein, you've got, you can do corn soya blend, mixing soya bean with maize meal to make a porridge, which is very nutritious, better than just maize meal porridge. So these are things or products that come off the soya bean value chain that we encourage. And so these are all opportunities that are available for the wider populace to participate and jump in and take part in being part of that value chain.
On that note, we're also going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Today, we are taking a holistic approach on the soybean value chain. We are looking at the industry, starting from research, production, processing, marketing, and consumption. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Leave your comments and suggestions on our YouTube channel. They are very important to us. It's Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We are also now available on Twitter, where most of these discussions take place. It's at Agribusiness 110. Mr. Moyo, thank you for joining us. We are in the second segment.
Yes, thank you, Wadzanai.
Yes, now I want us to talk about the import substitution issue. There's been calls from our government to take a holistic approach in our agriculture industry. You are into processing, you are industry giants. Of course, you are going to need raw materials to process so that you come with byproducts of soybeans. So at times, you'd find that we end up importing these raw materials, and yet in Zimbabwe we have a comparative advantage. We have the ecological zones that support agriculture. Your sentiments, your views from an industry perspective.
Yes, I think that's a very important approach to develop these ecosystems or clusters that support the emergence and the sustenance of value chains. And so as a company, as United Refineries, we have gone into contracting of farmers because we wanted to address this issue of continually importing without any end in sight.
Yes.
And that's contrary to some sort of popular economic thinking that says, focus on your comparative advantage and so on. As you've highlighted, we do have some comparative advantages in soya production. And in fact, you will find that our yields and our cost per hectare are much lower.
Very true.
And so we need to take advantage of that, in particular with soybeans. Zimbabwe is one of the countries with the highest dam population, dam DAM.
Yes.
The number of dams per square kilometer is much higher.
Which supports agriculture.
Which supports agriculture, which supports irrigated agriculture, which is soybean. Our soils, as you've said, very good. Our climate, very decent for soya. And so we believe we do have an advantage in that particular area. We've seen our neighbors in Zambia. Zambia, when I started in this industry, used to produce nothing more than 60,000 tons per year. Now they are on 600,000.
Okay.
They have 10x'd what they used to produce. So we are not reinventing the wheel.
Yes.
Zambia, you remember, is northern Zimbabwe. It used to be called northern
Rhodesia.
So we are still very much in that ecological zone. We have a test case that has been proven, and so we can do the same here in Zimbabwe and start to encourage farmers to grow. I think the solution lies in encouraging farmers to grow soybeans. It lies in training, educating farmers, but also training them, equipping them. It lies in financing. Financing of agriculture is a very important, that's why it's been so topical, and the banks getting involved, government getting involved, because the funding of agriculture is absolutely critical from where we are starting. And now domesticating that agriculture to local so that they are also take part in this revolution. Africa is growing in population. Zimbabwe is going to grow in population. In the next 25 years or so, we're going to double in population. So you would want to be part. And all that is food. All that is more eggs, more stuff that's required out of the value chain. So we need to start the journey now, kuwaridzira.
Yes.
To get ready to take part in this food revolution that is coming, because we're going to have more bodies, and our bodies, by the way, are built from protein.
Yes.
And soya is protein. So we need to really get with the program as far as that is concerned and start to participate. If you have a tract of land, a small tract of land, put it to the test and do what you can with that, half a hectare, whatever it is, because just like maize was popularized and our parents, our grandparents all started growing maize.
Yes.
I think we can do the same in
with
a way
soybean.
With soybean, and start to figure out more relevant solutions as a modern people, as a modern generation, and supported by our government.
Okay. Now, I want us to talk about investment. As Zimbabweans, there are calls from our government to enhance production and productivity. What kind of investment, from a business perspective, that is necessary or that suits our Zimbabwean soybean value chain at the moment to revitalize it?
Thank you, Wazana. I think the answer is all of the above. We need short-term investment, because we invest, from season to season. There are some existing farmers that want to grow soybeans but don't have the funds to fund their inputs, and so companies such as ours and others come in and contract farmers. So that's a type of investment.
Very true.
And I think the banks also need to really come to the party in a big way, look at creatively. With our current legislation in terms of land title, we look at creative ways of how we fund agriculture.
Yes.
Because that's the big question, and it's not just soya, it's a subset of that. So I think there's a room for bank financing, there's a room for longer term financing, which is to do with irrigation, developing land clearing new tracts of land.
Very true.
Near water bodies, and looking at 3 to 5 years to recover your loans or whatever financial instruments you've used to finance that crop. There are also large-scale farms which are much larger, your 1,000 hectares, 2,000 hectares, 3,000, what we call mega farms. So your mega farm development requires infrastructure, maybe beating a new road into it, and having silos for storage.
Yes.
These are longer term. This is a 5 to 8 year type window that you start to look at when you are doing longer term mega farm type investments.
Okay.
So I think we have to be open to those different kinds of investment and be creative and flexible in how we finance agriculture and various parts of agriculture.
Now, Mr. Moyo, as we round off this segment, I want us to talk about sustainability. If you look at UN Agenda Vision 2030, SDG number 12, it talks of sustainability when it comes to production. Can the current value chain, the status quo of the value chain, sustain our industry? And if not, what are your views? What are your recommendations?
Well, I think this is the journey that we are on to try and bring sustainability, because we are growing in population, and fortunately this is a renewable, it's agri-based, so every year we can go back into the land without destroying it. I think there are good agronomic practices that also enhance sustainability. I think there are green technologies that can be introduced to support, and we move away from fossil fuels and others that are very much involved all the way up throughout the value chain. But because it's agriculture, I believe sustainability is kind of embedded in it, and if we can increase protein, I think that's better for everyone in terms of sustainability, rather than going the meat way.
Yes.
I do have meat occasionally, but I'm starting to favor, plant-based protein. So from a sustainability point of view, we are very much at the heart of this issue of sustainability, and making sure that we are going into renewable practices, into agronomic practices that are climate friendly and replenish the soil. Soils are nitrogen fixing.
Very true.
So that is part of that sustainability in terms of the soils. So we can look at sustainability from different lenses. I think you will find that soybean is one of those that ticks many of those boxes, and hence the encouragement and the urge that we have to say more people should switch to growing soybean.
On that note, we are going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this in the third and final segment. Welcome back, viewers. We are here in the third and final segment of your program, Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030, where we discuss business finance, production economics, time value of money, to mention but a few. Today, we are taking a holistic approach. We are looking at the soybean value chain here in Zimbabwe. And to discuss this, I've taken the liberty of inviting Mr. Busisa Moyo. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the United Refineries Group of Companies. Mr. Moyo, we are here in the third and final segment. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Wazanai.
As we close, can we talk about export growth? Is it possible for Zimbabwe to export soybeans?
The short answer to your question, Wazanai, is yes. And Zambia, by the way, is one of the few African countries that is a net exporter of soybean products and soybean value chain products, especially the soya cake, the meal. And it's very possible because Zimbabwe only requires 300,000 tons of soybean. Once we break that mark, we also enter into the five-star arena of an exporter of this oilseed and value chain products. And beyond a certain point, I think it's 700,000 tons, we can actually start to export crude oil, which is crude soybean oil. By the way, that's what we are importing. So the conversation is, how do we turn the table? How do we change the game so that we are the ones exporting the crude soybean oil to countries like DRC, Congo, who cannot produce and currently are pulling it in from Brazil and other places, and other countries that are still using palm oils, which are from Asia or the Far East. So we can change the game. Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, well positioned to be three countries that really change the game, and I think it will be a good triad to share some notes. In these days, we don't talk about competing, we talk about collaborating and learning from each other, and really building up a hub in Africa that is a net exporter. I think that by 2030, if we work the way we are working, what is that? To perhaps look at doubling our hectarage every year, a simple thing like that. How do we double our hectarage every year until we reach export competitiveness and being a net exporter? I think that would be a good target to upload into NDS1, and all the way up, it's Africans participating in their own growth. Because in these sectors, we have to look carefully at how we participate as locals in these sectors. And so that we are not just getting outside investment only, but we also have will as local entrepreneurs to participate all the way in the opportunities that we highlighted in the first segment.
Now, Mr. Moyo, you spoke to an issue that touches the farming community directly. You were saying that it is possible to begin with doubling hectarage or tonnage as we progress year in, year out, we'll be doubling. Can you maybe, your recommendations to maybe our policymakers or to the farming community in terms of enticing them? How are they enticed or lured to want to produce soybeans?
Fortunately, the journey has already begun, Wadzanai, because we talk of the ease of farming. It doesn't just touch on soybean. The Minister of Agriculture has been very astute to meet us as soybean value chain players every Thursday, every week. That's one of the firsts. We haven't had that. I've been in this sector for 15 years. We've not seen that. So we are meeting with the minister and we are starting to talk about these things that we are discussing in this program, but maybe to greater detail. Yes, we contract as agri-business processors, but however, we are not big enough to contract the whole country.
Yes.
I think we need to release the title issue into the hands of farmers, and they will do what they need to do. So that's the biggest incentive. The biggest incentive is bankable title. Once somebody has a clear title that's bankable and they know I own it, they behave differently. Then the next thing is to continue to illustrate the merits of soybean, as I have done in this, your program, to show the benefits, the protein value, as opposed to maize, which was the first to come in and everybody grows maize.
Yes.
We've got millions of tons of maize, but we don't get as much nutrition from maize.
Very true.
So if we talk of nutrition, we talk of small grains and soya in my agricultural world.
Very true.
So we have to illustrate these. And then also now soybean, the kind of fertilizers that you need in maize and soybean are different.
Very true.
You see that this year in particular, soybean production is far more viable than maize. So we have to continue to illustrate. These are the biggest incentives besides saying policymakers, but there are things that can be done at policy level. For example, the issue of tax registration of farmers so that they're not penalized when we, the processors, buy from them.
Yes.
There's a 30% withholding tax. We've already engaged ministry on that. The issue of retention, when they receive payment in US dollars, can they bank their full US dollar proceeds? So we are penalizing our own farmers. And that's a discouraging thing for a sector that we want to grow and to expand.
Finally, your word of advice, your final remarks as we close this segment, this episode. Talk to our farmers, talk to the various stakeholders in this industry as we close.
Really to encourage our farmers that soybean is a crop of the future. Soybean is one of those crops that has been growing since the 60s at the rate of above 8% per year. So the world over. So Zimbabwe is not exempt. As we grow as a nation, if we want our children to be alert, not to be undernourished, but to be fully nourished, we need protein. And that protein, one of the places, not the only place, but one of the places we can get it is soybean. And so we want to encourage our farmers, our local farmers, our commercial farmers, all farmers. If we can focus on this value chain, I believe we are not just doing business or making money. We are playing a responsibility for future generations.
Thank you so much, Say. That was very detailed. There you heard it, viewers. Zimbabwe is a very youthful country with well over 67% of the population being the youth, meaning we're going to need a lot of protein to nourish our bodies. And now plant-based proteins are now a healthier option and also sustainable as we pave way towards achieving Vision 2030 as a country. It was a pleasure having you with us, Say, on this episode.
Thank you, Wadzanai. Thank you, listeners.
From me, your host, Wadzanai Manyore. I'm also on Instagram. It's W Manyore. And the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.